Hi, I'm Lindsay, and I have an opinion about land reform. Let's get started. Land reform was a very contentious topic in this country. Julius Malema, Cyril Ramaphosa, a lot of big hitters in the political sphere have weighed in on it. But if we refer to our good friend, the Constitution again, according to the Bill of Rights, property may be expropriated only in terms of law of general application. So that's A, for public purpose or in the public interest, and B, subject to compensation, the amount of which and the time and manner of payment have either been agreed to by those affected or decided or approved by a court. Basically, we have very strong rules around the expropriation of land. Why it has come up in the news lately is Cyril Ramaphosa on the 31st of July pledged to amend the Constitution around this exact land expropriation thing. Why did he have to do that? I'll tell you. In August 2011, there was a case at the Constitutional Court. It was the Haffajee family versus the eThekwini municipality. So the problem is, the Haffajee family's land was part of a bigger area that the eThekwini municipality had already earmarked for expropriation to do some, like lay a canal or something. And they were like, no, we're not gonna take your offer at market value. We're gonna chill out here because we take our place. What the Constitutional Court decided, and I need to get this right, is that the provisions of Section 25, which is that whole land reform thing that I read earlier, do not require that the amount of compensation at the time and the manner of payment must always be determined by agreement or by the court before expropriation. The ruling then goes on to say that you cannot just evict people. So this is the big problem now. You have a party who owns land that has been earmarked for a larger public works program, and that person doesn't want to leave. So what the ANC or the ruling party needs to do is just tighten up the powers that the government has in that sort of situation. Remember, that case wasn't about the amount of money that was being paid. It was all about whether the eThekwini municipality had the power to move these people so that they could lay their canal, which would service a much larger area. In September of this year, 2018, the Belgian government pledged 30 million euros to our land reform process. The Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Didier Reynders, even said that expropriation without compensation is the best way to handle a land reform. But he did stress that it's important to have a balanced process. UK Prime Minister Theresa May is also in support of Cyril Ramaphosa's approach, reiterating his statement that it won't be a smash and grab approach. The UK are cozying up to the African continent in a big way. They are aiming to be the largest G7 investor in the continent by the year 2022. So, let me stop it right there. The UK are making friends in Africa because when Brexit happens, all those EU trade policies don't apply to them anymore, so they need to broker whole new deals. So you can understand that Theresa would be trying to help out brother Cyril so that we can help them out with trade later on. That said, UK business leaders are demanding a transparent land reform process. It seems like the biggest pushback is coming from within our own borders, from our own people. And this knee-jerk reaction is what I have a problem with. So in August this year, after Cyril Ramaphosa's statement, Masiwa Lekota, leader of COPE, and the CEO of AfriForum, Kali Kriel, combined forces to attack the ruling party. Lekota is arguing that Parliament lost its legitimacy when it failed to hold Jacob Zuma accountable for his crimes. And he goes on to say that the land hearings don't amount to a mandate from the public to go forth and amend the Constitution. But he conveniently forgets that there is a section in the Constitution that grants the National Assembly the right to amend the Constitution without asking for the public's opinion if they have 2/3 majority of the vote. The ANC are the ruling party, and they are there with more than 2/3 of the public vote, and that gives them the authority to actually go forth and amend the Constitution. What we're all forgetting is that nothing has been set in stone yet. If you want to amend the Constitution, that bill needs to be government gazetted 30 days before it gets put to the National Assembly. And the National Assembly can't vote for it for 30 days after it has been tabled. Creel's argument is targeted at the 1994 agreement that was struck between the political parties at the time. That came in the wake of the abolition of Racially Based Land Measures Act number 108 of 1991. That act repealed the disgusting discriminatory Principal Act like the Black Land Act of 1913, aka the Natives Land Act, the Group Areas Act of 1966, and the last-ditch power grab by the National Party, which was the Black Communities Development Act of 1984, among many others. So since Mr. Creel wants to spit a bit of history, let's get down with a history lesson. Let's take a look at exactly what the Native Land Act of 1913 was, and that will give us a better sense of what I'm talking about when I'm saying that land reform is the quickest route we have to reconciliation. That hateful pile of crap legislation made it illegal for white farmers to trade land with natives. At the time, it was spun to the international market as protecting the natives so that the white farmers don't buy up any more of their land. So their land at the time was owned in reservations, native reservations, which were run by the chiefs. So they couldn't trade it anyway. And this was only less than 20% of the land mass in the Union. Yes, South Africa was a union back then, not a republic. So the majority of the population were restricted to only owning a fifth of the entire land mass, and they couldn't trade that because it was illegal to trade with the very people that owned the majority. So let that sink in before you type your argument about how your Opa Grootjie paid a fair price for his massive piece of land that he then passed down to you. And don't even get me started at the destruction that was caused by the Group Areas Act. In short, the gateway to equality and true reconciliation is through a solid land reform process. My solution is targeted at agriculture because housing is a completely different topic that needs a lot more rethinking of how we do urban planning. We've now had 20 years of willing buyer, willing seller, or any other fair compensation tactic that was trying to pass land from the hands of those who were enriched by apartheid to the previously disadvantaged, and it hasn't worked. Like the Constitutional Court case above, there's very little clarity around what powers the government actually has to force these people to give up their land. So my idea is this. Step 1, amend the Constitution and clarify exactly what powers the government has. Step 2, incentivize the transfer of land by maybe regulating the size of land that people can own and then taxing them heavily for any land that is above that regulation. So if they are so moved to then hand over the land, then you can give them further tax incentives in the form of tax breaks or maybe government bonds to compensate them for their generous gesture. You can even include then more tax incentives for those people who hand over land along with training and skills transfer or enter into cooperative agreements with the new landowners. So the closest the world has ever come to realizing the solution that I am proposing is the Guatemalan Decree 900 of 1952. What happened in Guatemala was the government took ownership of all unused land larger than 9 square kilometers. So this land was then distributed to 500,000 families, most of who were natives who haven't had land ownership rights since the Spanish landed in Guatemala. The landowners were compensated in government bonds. What happened? Agricultural output soared, economic prosperity, there was a national minimum wage announced, and then the CIA intervened with a coup d'etat in 1954. Why did the US intervene in another country's politics? Because a US-owned fruit company called the United Fruit Company were losing profits with all of these poverty-reducing policies, and it was said to be communism. I'm that opinion guy. This has been a Hammer Rose production shot at the Panda Bomb Studios. Cheers. All I really know is I'm a flow and keep rocking.